A small group of scientists are working in the quaternary department of Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences. And quaternary is the youngest time period in the geological time scale, and discovers to about 2.6 million years. And this has been divided into mainly two epochs, that is the Pleistocene and the Holocene. And Holocene time period is the very recent one that covers about 11.6 thousand years from now. And the vegetation and the climate change during this period is very important, because most of the world is dependent on the agriculture economy. And the monsoon system is very important for the agricultural benefit to the society. So climate vegetation correlation is also important for the biodiversity. So the gaseous exchange between the plant and the animal kingdom balances the living system, and therefore we ought to know about the variability or the changes and the factors that change the climate, that have changed the climate during the past. So the main thing is that we study from the sediments is the pollen spores or other biotic forms that get preserved in the sediments. And among these, pollen spores are the hardest part of the plant that evade degradation in the soil and are preserved. And whenever we get the sediments for the study from the site, we reconstruct the vegetation by identifying the pollen spores of the vegetation that had occurred in the past. So after retrieving the biotic forms from the sediments, we organize it in softwares and um, develop a system, or develop a paleontological succession which enables us to infer the climatic conditions that have occurred in the past. And the rhythmicity of the climatic conditions help us to understand and also predict the future scenario in the period of global warming, and many other implications of the climate in different fields of human activities in future. So now I'll ask Dr. Feroz Qamar to continue about details, about telling the details of the monsoonal system in the Indian subcontinent.
There are two basic aspects in pollen analysis. One is the understanding the modern pollen dispersal aspect, and the another is the reconstruction of past vegetation and associated climate change. So as we see here that there are 16 different types of vegetation found in India according to Champion and Seth, and as far as the establishing the modern pollen vegetation relationship is concerned, the relationship is in fact non-linear. I mean to say that there is no one-to-one relationship between the extant plant and the pollen grains deposited in the sediments. So this non-linearity, which is also known as Fagerland effect, is very important, and understanding this aspect is very important, which act as a modern analog for understanding the fossil pollen records for past vegetation dynamics and climate change. So this nonlinearity could be due to the variation in the pollen production and dispersal of various plant pollen taxa in the different areas, as the different types occurred in different parts of India, and also the dispersal aspect of the every plant taxa varies. And the taxonomy also plays a crucial role in establishing the pollen vegetation relationship. Then another aspect is the pollen reconstruction of past vegetation and climate. So as at the outset it has been said that the monsoon, first we will see what monsoon is. So monsoon is the circulation system which is driven by the energy of the sun. or we may also say that monsoon is the wind seasonal reversal of wind action. The term monsoon is derived from the Arabic word mosam, which means season. However, the monsoon is popularly used to denote the rains without any reference to the winds. So in the entire Indian scenario, we will see how the monsoon is governing the vegetation dynamics and contemporary climate change. But we will confine this time in the central Indian core monsoon zone, which extend between the latitudes of 18 to 28 degree north and the longitudes of 65 to 88 degree east. And it is in fact that region or that zone where the variation of rainfall during the months of July and August represents well the intensity of Indian summer monsoon rainfall. And this zone is significant in a way that it is very sensitive to ISM variation. So understanding the active or break spells of monsoon is very significant, and we may reconstruct this break spells. Especially active is fine, but understand what the break spell of monsoon is. During the monsoon season, long dry spells are common, and during those periods there is no rainfall for more than a week. So this phenomenon of non-occurrence of monsoon during the active monsoon period is called breaks in monsoon. And these breaks are related to the fluctuation in the formation of a kind of low pressure system, which is called tropical depression. The amount as well as the intensity of rainfall during the monsoon is determined by these depressions, which play an essential and pivotal role during the movement of wind. It is also argued that there is interconnection, there is some connectivity between the westerlies and the Indian summer monsoon, and that pushes the low pressure trough towards the Himalayas, and as a result, the low rainfall occurred in the central Indian part. So we may say that this break of monsoon is in fact sojourn during the active monsoon period, and if it prolonged, so it may cause considerable. So we see how the monsoon is important in understanding the dynamics of monsoon. And as far as the vegetation dynamics is concerned, there are different types of forest, and on the basis of the different pollen assemblage, we categorize them. Here we may see evergreen forest where high precipitation is there and climate is warm and humid, and moist deciduous forest, moderate precipitation, less warm and humid climate, and the other is dry deciduous forest where the precipitation is low and dry and arid climate is there. These forest structure is based on the precipitation records of the specific area. Now I invite Dr. Shilpa Pandey, who will discuss about the sampling strategy and the related aspect.
Well, as Dr. Feroz told you about that how we relate the vegetation and climate. So it's very important that how we decipher and how we take the samples. So here I'm just going to give you a brief description that how we take the samples. So first of all, we try to identify the potential sites for paleoclimatic studies. Those potential sites can be the ponds, lakes, estuaries, lagoons, or the wetlands. So you can see easily in the slide that the sediment core we retrieve with the help of two methods, that may be the trenching or the coring method. So here you can see a man who is touching this corer and he is trying to retrieve a sediment core. Well, in the second part adjacent to it, you can see a person is sampling the sediment core. Well, as I told you that we can also collect the samples through the trenching method. So the entire sediment can be subsampled into different intervals in order to take the high resolution data set. After this, we take away the samples to the laboratories, and then we try to do the chemical processing using the different chemicals. So, in order to do the palynological analysis, first of all, I would like to tell you that what is palynological? That means the study of the pollen spores. So, in order to deflocculate the sediments, we use the sediment, treat the samples with the KOH solution, and in order to remove the silica, we treat the samples with the HAF, and which is later on followed by the acetylysis method, which is very, very important. What it has actually, after processing the samples, we need to see the samples under the light microscope. And until unless the sample is not quite transparent, we won't be able to see the morphological features of the pollen spores, which is very important to identify the particular genus species, which help us to understand the vegetation in the past. So we use the acetylysis mixture over here. And once our sample is prepared after processing and after using different chemicals, we sieve the entire samples. So here in the slide, you can easily see a student who has already treated the samples with the using the chemicals. Then she is trying to centrifuge the samples, and then she is sieving the samples using 600 mesh size. This mesh size is very, very small, so that it doesn't allow a single pollen to go out of the sample and out of the sieve. And once the sample is prepared, so here you can see in a plastic voile tubes, we collect our residue, and that is called the mesarel. And this mesarel we take with the help of a dropper, and especially the homogenized sample we take with using a dropper. We put on a slide and try to see the pollen spore, very tiny particles, using the microscope, because as you see, the microscopic study is only possible with the help of a microscope. So now I hand over for the details to Dr. Vishwajit Thakur. He will tell you about how the pollen slide preparation goes on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shilpa. Now, I would like to introduce how we prepare the slides on the slide. And this is how you can see that the student slides are spread over the slide mounted with the cover slip. And this is the light microscopy image, the bottom one, where you can identify the different type of pollens being studied under the microscope or light microscope. Actually, basically, we know that along with pollens, different type of other biotic components are also recorded. They basically are non-pollen palynomorphs, which represent the fungal spore one. The diatoms and silicoflagellates. Along with these, we also get dinoflagellates, which are helpful for the reconstruction of marine events, and palynofacies components that clearly indicate the type of setting in which these sediments have been deposited. It is not important for the present, but also very important for getting the insights of past vegetation and climate. Now, after getting the data and counting the data around 300 to 500 pollen grains, we prepare the chart. And this is how a chart looks like, where it is in the x-axis, the various percentages are plotted along with the depth and age, and the different taxa are subjected in the upper part and grouped accordingly. And based on the abundance and short, the relative time period of the vegetation or climate can be addressed. So, by looking at the graph pollen diagram, we as experts can identify the different type of climate relation. But if we want a layman or a common people to understand this type of vegetation, we can make a reconstruction of the sampling site or that, and accordingly we can project it on the map so that we can get a representation of the past vegetation type and the present vegetation types that can be compared for any climatic details. Now I would like to ask Dr. Jyoti Srivastava to please continue with the continue.
Now, in order to study the impact of monsoon variability to the coastal environment, this is one aspect in which we are focusing on, that is the mangrove palynology in the coastal sediments. Well, mangroves are a sensitive ecosystem. They thrive along the backwater channel along the estuaries in the coastal environment, and they have high importance in paleoclimate and sea level studies. So this is the Rhizophora species, and they are present along the coastline and along the backwater channels. They fringe along the coastline and they need complete inundation of water. They are having stilt roots and they help in breaking the sea waves, and they protect the coastline from getting eroded through tsunami or cyclone, and they are very useful for a coastline. That's why we are always preparing some measures to rehabitat them and recolonize these mangrove ecosystem in our coastline. So this is the zonation plan of these mangroves. These mangrove species are zoned on the basis of the substrate salinity. For example, the first one, if you see in the slide, they are Rhizophora species. They are present along the backwater channel where there is complete inundation of water, whereas these Avicennia species, they are found towards the landward edge, towards the higher elevated areas where only during the supratidal region time the water is present, and the rest of the time it is drier. Then we have the Sueda species, which are highly salt tolerant species, and they are found in areas which are very less inundated with water, and they are generally dry. So these mangroves are zoned in this preferences, and this is a schematic representation of an estuarine evolution and how the shoreline has prograded in the northeastern Kaveri River Delta since past 6,000 years. And if we see over here, we have used mangrove palynology based on palynomorphs and non-palynomorphs. We are able to show how the shoreline has shifted due to changes in the climatic conditions and how the mangrove ecosystem has adapted to this change in climate conditions. So next, we have to know how this paleoclimate studies is important for the present day scenario. As we know, the present climate on the earth is influenced by natural monsoon variability and greenhouse gas emission in the environment since the industrial revolution time, and also due to land cover changes that is brought, that is forest is converted into agricultural lands and back again. So all these changes have impacted the environment in the present time, and for this study we generally use the instrumental records that are only a few hundreds of years long, and the geological records that are thousands to millions of years in the time span. So culminating all these two records, we are able to decipher how the past climatic changes have impacted the ecosystem. So how the present scenario has changed and how it will change in future, that we will come to know when these paleoclimatic records are used in the climate models. These climate models are benefited by these paleoclimate records because they are able to interpret and project how this ecosystem is varying in the past and it is in the present, and how it will be affecting the future ecosystem. So it is always beneficial to use these paleoclimate studies and the climate models to predict the future challenges of global warming and climate change. Thank you.